Imagine 2 guards grab you by the arms and hurl you into the oubliette.
Stone presses cold against your back, your feet squelch in unseen foul water. The air hangs thick and heavy, smelling of damp earth, decay and something worse. Above you, a heavy door slams shut with a final echoing thud. The last sliver of light vanishes. You are forgotten. You are in an oubliette. This word oubliette comes from the French oublier, to forget, and that was the point. It wasn't just a prison. It was a place designed to make people vanish, to be erased from memory and life itself. But our story of these horrors begins earlier, with a word we know well, dungeon.
We picture dungeons as dark, underground cells filled with chains and misery. Surprisingly, that wasn't the original meaning. The word dungeon actually comes from the French donjon. And the donjon? That was the mighty central tower of a castle, the strongest part, the last refuge. Thick stone walls, few windows, built to withstand sieges. Think of it as the castle's armoured heart. Back in the 11th century, these great keeps were often square. But warfare evolved. Battering rams became a serious threat. How do you stop a ram smashing a flat wall? You build it round. By the 12th century, round towers became the fortress within the fortress, the most secure spot imaginable. Naturally, this strongest place became the perfect vault for the lord's most precious possessions, including valuable captives. The lord himself might retreat there if enemies breached the outer walls. Over time, as castles grew, dark, windowless basement rooms within the donjon or tucked away in curtain walls proved perfect for holding prisoners. The word dungeon, once meaning the powerful tower itself, gradually shifted to mean these grim prison cells, especially the ones sunk deep underground. It's important to remember that in the early Middle Ages, locking people up for years wasn't common. Fines, mutilation or execution were often preferred. Why feed and guard a common thief? Imprisonment was mostly for high-stakes prisoners, nobles captured in war who could be ransomed for gold or land, or political enemies useful as bargaining chips. Only the truly valuable were worth the cost of long-term confinement, but for them, the castle's deepest, darkest recesses awaited. Places like Pontefract Castle in England became infamous for vast, oppressive dungeon networks. Built in the 9th century, it saw terrible violence. King Edward II crammed his rebellious cousin and others into its depths before their executions. King Richard II met his end there too, likely imprisoned in a tiny, lightless hole beneath the keep, starved or murdered on Valentine's Day 1400. Later, Oliver Cromwell, furious it was the last royalist stronghold, had it destroyed. Locals, remembering their town plundered by soldiers heading to the castle, gladly helped tear it down. Ruins remain today, and deep beneath them, about 35 feet underground, the dark dungeons still lie hidden. On the volatile border between England and Scotland, Gillingham Castle earned a terrifying reputation. Fortified under King Edward III, it featured battlements, torture chambers, and dungeons. The ruthless hammer of the Scots, King Edward I, used it horrifically. Captives, soldiers, spies, women, children faced unimaginable torment. Many had limbs broken before being thrown 20 feet down through a trapdoor. With only one tiny arrow slit for light, they were left to starve in blackness, desperation sometimes driving them to cannibalism. Legend claims 7,500 Scottish prisoners died there, bodies dumped into the castle lake. St Andrew's Castle in Scotland, perched on the coast, swapped hands often during wars with England. Its sea tower held a notorious secret, the Bottle Dungeon. Carved straight down into solid rock, 24 feet deep, it was shaped like a bottle, wide at the bottom, impossibly narrow at the top. No windows, no ventilation, just a pit. Prisoners were lowered in and abandoned to rot. David Stewart, heir to the Scottish throne, endured it in 1402 before being starved to death elsewhere. Murdoch Stewart suffered its darkness before his execution. Even the castle's first archbishop, deemed insane, was confined within its suffocating embrace. Medieval imprisonment was rarely pleasant. While nobles held for ransom might get decent rooms, for most, castle prisons meant filth, cold, damp and the constant threat of violence. Torture was commonplace, bones broken on the rack, fingers dislocated by thumbscrews, flesh seared by branding irons. But even within this grim world, one invention stood out for its sheer soul-crushing cruelty, the oubliette, the forgetting place.
Imagine a stone cylinder, narrower than a man's height, a vertical shaft plunging deep into the earth. So small you couldn't turn around properly, couldn't kneel, couldn't sit, couldn't lie down. Many were dug beneath existing dungeons, becoming a prison within a prison. All the seepage, the foul water, the waste from above trickled down into this hole. It was perpetually cold, damp, and putrid. You wouldn't walk in. You'd be lowered by rope into the inky blackness, forced to stand. Your feet might sink into mud, or worse, you might land on something, the rotting corpse, or just the bones of the last forgotten soul. The trapdoor above would slam shut, impossibly high, cutting off the last glimmer of light and hope. Total suffocating darkness. The only sounds, dripping water, scuttling rats, and your own terrified breathing. Sometimes captors might throw down scraps of food or a little water for weeks, prolonging the agony. Often they simply forgot. Prisoners were left to starve, dehydrate, go mad, or succumb to disease in a matter of days. The psychological terror was as potent as the physical suffering. The utter helplessness, the claustrophobia, the knowledge you were literally buried alive and erased. This horror was found across lands. The mighty Bastille in France became infamous for its political prisoners and its oubliettes beneath its towers. To be oublietted there was a terrifying fate. In what is now Turkey, Throatcutter Castle, Rumeli Hisari, had a secret doorway on a tower's 6th level that opened onto nothing. An unsuspecting prisoner, pushed through, would plunge 13 feet down into a dark hole deliberately built within the thick wall, left injured and trapped in a hidden tomb. Beneath the Tower of London's White Tower lay Little Ease, a cell a mere 4 feet square, too small to stand, sit or lie down. Prisoners crouched in agonising discomfort, in total darkness, sometimes for weeks, released only for interrogation and torture. Guy Fawkes knew its misery. Wales felt the cruelty too. Conwy Castle, built by Edward I, had a prison tower. A comfortable chamber above might hold a noble, but below it lay a true dungeon. A 12-foot deep pit carved into rock, accessible only by a trapdoor above. An oubliette in waiting. At Pembroke Castle in 1440, John Withen suffered under the Duke of Gloucester. Stripped naked, given barely any food, thrown into a dark claustrophobic oubliette, he emerged blind and permanently broken. Ireland's Leap Castle added a final vicious touch, spikes set into the floor of its oubliette near the chapel. Originally a vault, it became a death pit. Renovations in the 1920s revealed the remains of over 150 people, 3 cartloads of skeletons, a grim testament to its use. For nobles, the oubliette was often a short, sharp shock, a tool of terror used to extract information before moving them to better quarters. But for others, commoners, rebels, the inconvenient, the unransomable, it was a death sentence by slow, horrifying erasure. It was cheap, it was effective, it required minimal guards, it maximised suffering and despair. In a violent age, the oubliette represented a chilling efficiency in cruelty, a physical manifestation of being utterly forgotten by the world above. Imagine the despair as the last light faded. Imagine the cold stone, the fetid air, the gnawing hunger, the creeping madness, the company of rats and the dead. Imagine knowing you would never see the sky again, that your name was already dust. That was the oubliette. That was being truly, finally, forgotten.